talked about it in her promo, and I can't get through an episode of Dynamite, a Dynamite download without talking Britt Baker. Britt Baker talked about it in her promo about the ranking system, and one of the key things now that she emphasized was now that Red Velvet lost, she's 5-1, and Britt's 7-1. So technically, Britt should be above Red Velvet. So let's talk about, where do you see, before we get into the meat of Britt's promo and get to dissect that and just what an entertaining segment that was, where do you see Red Velvet going from here, and who do you think is Jade's next contender? Because you mentioned there's nobody in this women's division that can really match up with Jade. From a style standpoint, who do you want to see her up against down the road?
Well, starting with Red Velvet, I kind of see her kind of pushing all the time. I like that about her. I want her to be in that top 5 range, where she's kind of pushing for the title, getting wins, putting people over like Jade, who are kind of like this big monster heel. I like that role for Red Velvet. I think that there's the titles in the future for both of these women. I think they're both very good, and they're both good at what they do. And I think that against an opponent that's not Jade, Red Velvet's going to look much better on offense. For example, I would like to see Statlander versus Jade. That was a really fun match later in the show. And obviously, Chris is a good face now with the best friends. Like, I think that could be a really fun match because they're both
powerhouses,
exactly. And that's something that there aren't a lot of options for powerhouses against somebody like Jade. And if you really want to legitimize her even more against somebody that's more veteran as well, you could do that and have 2 bigger opponents against each other, which would be really fun. I think if Jade was less of a heel, I would obviously like to see Nyla Rose versus.
That was the first name that came to my mind, but I agree with you completely. Right now, you got to keep them 2 apart. I agree.
Plus, those are your two bankable heel women in the company. Like, you have to let them do their own thing, and I think that that's very important. So I would like to see that match obviously down the line, maybe when there's a face turn for one of them. That would be really cool to see. But right now, I would like to see Statlander. Would be really fun. That's really the first name that comes to mind. Obviously,
I hear you. I think that's a great call, man. I saw the same thing that you saw when we watched Statlander return tonight. It's been a while since we've seen Chris in action, and she looked absolutely incredible. And you nailed it with Red Velvet. I think that she needs to continue to be in the mix. She kind of has like that Daniel Bryan vibe to me, where she kind of got that continuous underdog. And that's the money. Having her be in the chase, having her be that underdog who you want to see get over the hump, and just that as fans only builds the more she gets knocked down, right? You want to see her get back up and see her get back into the mix of things. So I think you nailed it, brother. I think that's spot on. All right, well, now that we got into that, bro, let's talk about it, right? Britt Baker is clearly, she had a great week, 2-0 this week, and she is now officially 7-1 in 2021. And she made a very convincing case for herself to be the number 2 contender, soon to be, as she pointed out. It's only a matter of time before Britt becomes the AEW Women's Champion. I think all of us have been chomping at the bit for it. Nobody more than me and the Dynamite download. We have been firm advocates for Britt being the absolute face of this division, and for becoming the world champion. I believe personally, this is another example. I have said it for months on end now. Britt is as bankable of a star in the entire company as it gets. Regardless of the women's division, men's division, tag division, Britt delivers every single time you see her out there. So for me, I was dialed in, but I want to hear your your takeaway from that promo, because I honestly think that Britt brings the fire every single time. And what I love about Britt, and I said it to SBD, is although she's a heel, right? She uses her smarts to her advantage. She's not cutting these cookie cutter promos, bro. Like, she is clearly an intelligent observer of what's going on in the AEW landscape.
Yeah.
And it's so hilarious to me, this subtlety in which she, like, subtlety or maybe not so subtle, but I've loved how, like, she laid on, like, how these now that she loves the ranking system, now that, you know, she's buying into it all. I just felt like it was very well delivered from Britt. Obviously, we're going to see Ty Conti versus Shida next week. So there's a lot for us as AEW fans. You know, is Shida going to lose that match? And do you have Ty Conti become the top dog? Or because Ty is a believable babyface, and Ty is really, I feel like, one of the most improved wrestlers on the entire roster this year.
Yeah.
Or do you save that dethroning of Shida, who is the longest reigning champion in AEW history? Do you save that dethroning for the DMD? And in that regard, make that moment that much more special? What do you think, Bonds?
So to get back to your first question, I completely agree with what you said. This is a great promo from Britt. She's so good at her delivery. She's such a cocky, just funny, entertaining heel, and she's so good at saying things that if you said it in a different way, she would be a face. Like, she'd be the good guy in a lot of ways. But the way she says it makes her just she's a jerk. And it's great. And I love that about Britt. She's so good at being that character.
Yes.
And she's a role model. And she's like, I'm a role model. You should like me. You should want me to be the champ. Even, you know, that's what's great about her.
Yes.
And she's right. You know, she's had some great matches. I think that her match with Thunder was one of the best matches of the year. And she deserves to be recognized as somebody that's in that range for the title and eventually the champion. I would love to see her dethrone Shida, I think, more so than Ty, just because once Ty gets that push, I want to see Ty have it for a little bit. But Shida's been the champion for so long, and she's only had, I believe, 2 matches this whole year, which, you know, that's kind of unfortunate. And I'd like to see, I'd like to see Britt kind of get in there and maybe dethrone her over Ty, just because if there's 2 people that can beat Shida, then you kind of cheapen that title reign long term. Because I think the only way you give it to Ty is if you plan on keeping it on her for a little while. Mm-hmm. And I want to see Britt get that title next. I want her to be the next champ. It is time, because she's gold on the mic. She's great in the ring. There's nothing negative about what she does. She's the most bankable star in the division and one of the most bankable stars in the company. She's in the top 5. You can't name 5 people that are more bankable than her as stars, and she's right there, and she's ready. She's clearly ready to go. It's time to strap the rocket to her and let her go.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Just another example.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Bonds. I feel like this is another example of, like, you put her on Dark, you put her on Elevation, you put her on Dynamite. You just every show that you have, put the DMD on the show, because, you know, like, she's such a great ambassador for the company in one way. Like, she obviously clearly intelligent, charismatic, somebody who is just knows, like you said, knows how to just turn anything into comedic gold. She's very, very funny in that regard, but she's believable. And I think that that's what really makes it worthwhile for us as fans. And I agree with you on this too, is, you know, if anyone is going to dethrone Shida, it should be Britt. She's put in the work. You see, you know, last year she was voted as the most improved wrestler by PWI, and rightfully so. Her character work has gotten so darn good, man. She's become really a must-see character on AEW television. She is absolutely associated. When you think AEW, she's one of the first things that comes to mind in this company. And so I hear you there. And I think that, like, you know, through that build of that feud with Thunder Rosa and Britt, we got to see another side of Britt. We got to see, like, what she's willing to put herself through. We had to see, like, everybody agrees Thunder Rosa is amazing in the ring. She's a fighter. She's a scrapper. That woman trains like nobody's business. She sets the bar very high for her competition. And, you know, we saw if you can't hang with Thunder and you're not gonna last long in AEW, and we've seen some things that happened recently where that took place. Britt hung with Thunder and then some. I think we talk about it.
Give it her all.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, bro. Iron sharpens iron. That feud was such a great example of iron sharpens iron. Just a perfect babyface, perfect heel going at it. And at this point, we got to see Britt is not just a great promo. Britt is a great worker in the ring. And you can count on her to really carry some incredible matches with other talents throughout this division. For Shida to be the longest reigning champion in AEW history and Britt to take that off of her, so many fans have been clamoring for Britt to finally get to that. Just give the belt to Britt already, right? This is going to feel such a huge moment when Britt does take that belt, because it is going to, like you said, Shida has been very protected to this point. So I'm excited about that. I think that there's a lot to go, a lot of star power on the horizon.